welcome to the Tabletop Almanac. My name is Simon, and today I am looking at Odysseys and Overlords 2nd edition. If you notice I'm flickering, it has nothing to do with the northern lights behind me, and everything to do with the late afternoon sun, which has been causing me no end of consternation in recording this. So I finally settled on a virtual background since I don't have to show anything. So, physical, that is. Which is usually why I wouldn't want to use a virtual background. Odysseys and Overlords. A couple of caveats, heads up, disclaimers. I was given a copy of this to review for you and talk about with you in advance, and also have done a number of APs with Travis Legg, the main writer and developer. At the time of recording, this is currently in Kickstarter. So, that's partly why we're looking at this, to let everybody know about it and why they should check it out. So Odysseys and Overlords 1st edition is an OSR game following probably BX D&D style rules. I haven't looked at those books just yet, but that's the impression I got, and both the game and the setting is really meant to harken back to the early days of FRP gaming, the sort of, here be monsters, here are some kingdoms, go adventure, ye mighty folk. For the 2nd edition, the rules have been updated, changed, transitioned, converted, whatever word you'd like, to Savage Worlds Adventure Edition. This is, in fact, a Savage Worlds licensed product. If you followed my blog at all, then you would have probably seen that Savage Worlds Adventure Edition is my very first review. Lo, these many years ago. I quite like it. I've liked Savage Worlds for a long time. I liked the Adventure Edition update. Haven't had the chance to play it too much in the last little while, so there are going to be parts that I'm a little rusty on, but by and large, it is a very good game. By and large, the system is roll high on a polyhedral that is ranked to express your level of aptitude in an area, be it an attribute or a skill or power. So that means that you go from D4 up to D12, and your target number is 4, and for every 4 higher you roll than that, so 8 and 12, you get a raise, which grants you extra bonus stuff. Pretty straightforward. But there's a lot to it, and it's a pretty robust game. It's been around for a long time, well-liked, very popular. It alone is worth checking out, and this update is definitely worth checking out. So, to talk a bit about this product, it's an 80-page book, and the primary bulk of the setting material you'll be able to find in the 1st edition books, and that is not a bug, it's a feature, because in any spot where they've needed to, the writer, has converted or given you suggestions on what to use in Savage Worlds instead of in the BX OSR, I don't know what you're going to call it. Anyway, instead of the 1st edition rules. So the product here really focuses more on making sure you have sort of the core elements that you'll need to play the game in the setting with these rules. So to start off, there's an introduction. It's 1 page, and it covers the sort of history of the game fantastically. It hits the major plot points without spending 5 fucking pages getting to... 5 feels like so little, without basically running you through the painfully nitty-gritty of everything leading up to that. And world builders, I get it. I've done it too. But there's a time for succinctness, and that's nothing new. I'm repeating old news there. The long and short of the setting is that the gods go to war over jealousy regarding mortals and who they choose to consort with, and cause a schism and a cataclysm, magical backlashes, the War of the Gods, the schism itself, lasts 1,000 years. The followers of Ragnar, the god of conquest, are the instigators. The followers of Chandra, goddess of moon and nature, are the other side, and the only two gods that live through the conflict. And this is important for gameplay, to know that they're the only two living ones. You got divided mortal lands, a bunch of kingdoms, and then in the center of it all, the place where all the monsters live, and you're going to get to go adventuring. So there is a brief overview of the kingdoms. There's a couple of things that I like, where they talk about the laws and such. I had a player in Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay recently ask me, what are the laws like? And I paused and went, oh, arbitrary and brutal and harsh. And it's nice when that gets covered. So here, for example, the enforcement of law is left to the landed nobility. So there you go. And it's not even, right? It can change based on where you do this. So it's nice to have something like that included. Overall, the kingdoms each get a sort of brief overview, not an exceptionally long one, but again, I should go back to mentioning that the first edition content is perfectly applicable to what we have here. This is a update and a change to the Savage Worlds system. So there are a number of interesting ones here. The Centaur borderlands are pretty cool, where 5 different herds of Centaur roam about, do their thing, have villages, have a whole culture. There's Chandra's Haven, which is a sort of theocracy-like place. Estria, which is human-oriented. It's not human supremacist, but the only way you're able to sort of properly be a property owner, citizen, etc., is if you're part of the Knights of Estria. That is, if you are a non-human. What are the other ones? I like the Untamed Gauntlet, which you should like. You will spend most of your time there, it seems. It's the sort of expansive land that is kind of the no man's land area amongst the kingdoms there. It's where the schism hit its hardest. Then the Collective, I don't want to get into spoilers on that one. It's a pretty cool one. I like it a lot, and I really like what's been done with orcs. I am of the group of people that likes the modern look on orcs, where they are, a proper culture and people and not cannon fodder. And this is just an interesting take on them here in that sort of vein. One of the really handy things is that every kingdom has a random encounter table. And that's, I think, good because it gives you a sense of who you'll typically find in that area. Story seeds might be in the first edition material. I'll have to double check. I always like to have story seeds with them, but again, they're one of the add-ons for almost nothing for the campaign, so I would definitely include that to run an Odysseys and Overlords game. The inclusion of vampires as a faction or group solidly appeals to me. I think they're fun in any game, fantasy or horror or whatever. So to have them here is great. So from there, we can go on to character options. What you have available to you are some new species. They are referred to as ancestries. I like that. I am a big fan of changing that vocabulary. So, ancestries. You've got Abyss who come from the fallen gods that sided with Ragnar, and are your sort of tiefling-like creatures. They, thankfully, more closely resemble the second ed Planescape tieflings than they do anything since. No real like hatred towards current tieflings, but I liked them better when they didn't have gigantic horns necessarily, or just simply had a bit of extraplanar ancestry in them, rather than this weird mix of possibly descended from people that made pacts with demons, so on and so forth. Anyway, don't like it. Here, though, you get to pick or roll a bunch of different features and customize your own Abyss. One thing I'm going to note is that all of the ancestries here are non-traditional. So if you're here looking for your standard Tolkien elves, dwarves, halflings, even your Dungeons and Dragons versions of those, you won't find them. So you got centaurs, humans, but of course, Ligonians, who are amphibious, undersea people, which I think is really cool. They've got like tentacle hair. Orcs, again, I mentioned that I do enjoy this kind of take on orcs. Spell Scorched, who arose during the Schism as a result of let me hop back to that. They came about because of magical backlash. I guess I could have pretty well figured that out on my own. And they get some arcane resistance and, things in that vein. Wild folk, who are descendants of people and beasts, which in fact was part of the initial cause of the schism. And they're, you're kind of like, not quite like shifter, like in D&D, but they're the sort of maybe cat people, or beast kind of people. Beast being not meant to be any sort of derogatory commentary. I do want to point out the art here does have a wild folk who is differently abled, and that's a nice addition to have in there in a fantasy game, especially. People give fantasy a lot of grief when people try to be representative in it by saying like, "Oh, you didn't have wheelchairs at that time." Like, actually, and then I skipped over them because I wanted to come back to them. Lesser vampires. They're basically vampires that haven't become like greater vampires yet, and they're a character option. So I think it's since Darklands. If anyone ever read that, was that Mike Lee? Maybe it was someone else. But it was that sort of Lodos War, not Lodos War, manga-ish style comic book in the, I want to say, early 2000s. It had Age of Ice as a sequel to it. And I can't remember the studio that put it out. Anyway, there's a whole vampire nation, and I just thought that was so much fun. So, I like my vampires and my fantasy. You won't find elves. You won't find dwarves. There's like an elf-ish group of beings who I like that take on, to be perfectly honest. I think it's really cool. So if they do become a player character option, I will enjoy that. But you don't get, as standard, the typical species and ancestries. So it's nice to have a change here. It's something that I have been wanting to do in my own F20 games for a while, and it's also something that I liked about Talislanta, except for a few of the presentations of them. But just the idea that these were not your traditional fantasy peoples, I thought was really cool. So there's some new edges and such in here that are based off the Fantasy Companion, which would be an immense asset in running an Odysseys and Overlords game. There's some fighting ones, giving you extra attacks. There's a new arcane background, which is animist. So it isn't like the spirit-based animist. It's more life force-based animist, or animism. And then those are the sort of character creation ones. Now, one of the things that is particularly cool and notable about Odysseys and Overlords is the fact that in the setting there are only 2 gods still alive. All the other ones are dead. So their portfolios are up for grabs. And no joke, apotheosis is a part of the game. So you can basically direct your character on a path to take a domain of creation and take it into your own, meaning that you eventually can become a deity. I understand that to an extent that is part of the design goal of the game, is to play it like a BECMI 0 to level 36 hero / god game. So there you go. That's what it's there. That's what it's for. The rules are pretty good and straightforward for doing that. Does involve a fair bit of roleplay, some GM, not fiat, but just sort of GM guidance, which is totally fair and totally reasonable. You've got to have something like that in there. Then a couple more spells, and then an expansive bestiary. And that's cool. This is useful no matter what you're playing. It is, in fact, half the book is made up of a bestiary, which is smart because that increases its utility outside of an O&O setting game, is being able to just use these creatures in any other game. And in part, there are references back to previous Savage Worlds publications. So, for example, it'll say this is an equivalent to this creature here, but there's usually a tweak, a little bit of interesting flavor or mechanics to make them different enough. So that you can say, see this, except there's this. Ones that I like the web walkers, who are spider-like people, human, kind of dridery, and I always thought those were kind of cool amongst the whole mess of the drow. The driders I thought were really, really neat. I don't dislike drow, just from my era, there are biases. And then what's another neat one here? The purple spell Eating Ooze. It's a nice one. It absorbs spells and stuff, obviously. Eats away magic. Nice little thing. Handy to have if maybe you want to throw it at somebody you don't like. Those are the ones that are immediately jumping out at me, but there's a vast amount of them. Giant water termites. Yeah. Never never question a giant version of something pretty mundane, and like don't turn your nose up at it. It's a fun little thing to have, and a good opponent to throw at your players. It's except for Sturges. Christ on it, don't use Sturges. They're so annoying. I can't count how many times I had characters die or killed characters because fucking Sturges showed up and just started attacking. Once they attacked, they just leached and drank your blood. And they're like an early level enemy. Like when there's been challenge ratings in the system, they've been like what, a quarter of a challenge rating. When there haven't been challenge ratings, so like second ed and earlier, they've been low hit dice, etc. But it doesn't matter when you've only got 4 fucking hit points and this thing sticks this proboscis into you and starts draining you of blood, and you lose a point around on top of whatever damage you took initially. And if there are 2 Sturges, then that really sucks. So, I don't think I saw Sturges in here, but I consider them kind of bugs because they're basically giant mosquitoes. Yeah, mythology and mythological roots aside. Anyway, that's a temporary bit of an aside. I don't believe Odysseys and Overlords introduces or reintroduces Sturges, and having just done a quick scan, unless they're under a different name, they do not. So, another point in its favor. Okay. There's additions to rules for creating magic items that come up in the Fantasy Companion, and some new traits, and traits that are meant to be typical of magic items in the Odysseys and Overlords setting. So that's good to have here. It's just a nice add-on and elaboration, sort of an application of Fantasy Companion rules in practice. And you can see a number in the miscellaneous ones, a number of sort of classic D&D items: gauntlets of ogre power, drums of panic, the censer of commanding air elementals / brazier of commanding fire elementals, bowl of commanding water elementals. Was there anything to ever command earth elementals? Must have been something. I'll have to go back and look, but that's not here. So it's fun to have those there. It's a nice little D&Dism. Again, it is sort of bringing back that idea and that style of gameplay. And then you've got a nice introductory adventure. A little bit of a dungeon crawl. Nothing too stressful or too strenuous, but a good application of the game in practice. So, apart from that, let me hop ahead here. The art is really good. The cover and some of the interiors by Dean Spencer. You can see him in a number of places. Otherwise, there's a variety of other artists involved, all of whom do great work in the book. So visually, it's also a nice little package. And that's Odysseys and Overlords, second edition. It's on Kickstarter right now, moving towards its goal. So please check it out. The link I will include below. And if this is after that, I'll have a Drive-Thru RPG link to it. But go check it out. Aegis Studios, Travis Lake. There are a number of other add-ons that are being updated, of Aegis games updated to Savage Worlds Adventure Edition, including the urban supernatural horror Contagion, the cyberpunk Citizens Divided, and I want to say there's one more. And so I'm going to go and look and see what that one more is. It is all, you can also get Nope, my mistake. Just the 2. So Citizens Divided and Contagion, plus Odysseys and Overlords and the first edition material. You can get POD bundles, coupon POD at cost coupons. So go check it out. It is chugging along, getting closer and closer. Almost there. It's a good product and definitely worth checking out. So until next time, stay safe, everybody, and have good gaming.